still a person who primarily chases romantic adventure or carelessness as a hedonistic thrill seeker. We often create many additional rationales around our actions to obscure our fundamental motivation. The collection of these rationalizations is what constitutes our identity. Throughout our lives, we may encounter milestones where our core value changes as a result of a paradigm shift or an identity crisis. Analyzing one's own actions over the years through deep reflection or the practice of writing down an overview of one's key choices in life can easily reveal what this core value is for you. This can be an experience that is both enlightening and sobering, as it makes us see that our choices are rarely informed by the rationalizations we afterwards come up with. They are mostly the result of a childish attachment that lurks in our subconscious. And the more self-aware we become, the more we feel a dissatisfaction with the pursuit of hollow goals. But this is not a deterministic trap that we cannot escape from. We live in a probabilistic universe where nothing is set in stone. Rather than vaguely philosophize about the nature of free will, we can believe that the feedback loop of consciousness plays an active role in processing information and making decisions. It has a say in what our most deeply rooted core motivations are. Concepts and ideas only have power over us when we emotionally invest and hold on to them. This brings up the question, in light of all this knowledge, how do we correct our course? How do we truly find meaning in our lives and experience the kind of fulfillment that most of us only catch glimpses of from time to time? It turns out that science has more answers in these regards than is commonly assumed. It is widely understood that logic is our most powerful ally in understanding and approaching reality. More than a cold, blunt instrument.
Who's this?
It is the closest thing to a
Can you hear me?
that holds our universe together.
Are you talking to me?
Uh-huh.
It's A-Man.
Well, Ira just got on and said he has a conflict tonight, so I guess we're not doing tonight, or we've got to do it without him. So he says he can come on Monday. I got people saying they're listening, so Ahmad, would you like to help me tonight? Amazing. I don't know. I guess we're going to talk about longevity and consciousness and spirit science. Last night was a good show. You know, it was pretty good, but, you know, there's people out there that are probably excited about consciousness. And, you know, I don't know if you and I can carry this show, but, you know, what I understand, it's like putting on a record player, and you put, if all the equipment's there, you can play the music, right, and hear the music. And we're supposed to be particles and waves. So I guess we could start something like that, because, you know, they can't find where really our consciousness is, although I've been listening a lot to a gentleman named Stuart Hameroff. Have you seen his stuff on YouTube about consciousness?
No, I haven't.
He's an anesthesiologist.
I watched a couple of videos for Ira today, but I didn't have a chance.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Well, I guess he'll come back Monday. I just told him over there on Skype, because I didn't find it till just now. It's like, it's not here, you know, where you live in Skype land, right? So I said, okay, Monday's fine. This is Ira S. Pastor, folks. He's a great person. He says, running into a major conflict, can I do the Monday show instead? So I said, okay, you can call in number. So that's where we are, folks. Ira S. Pastor will be back with us Monday. And this is Ahmad Painter, and Ahmad Painter has been my producer for several years over on Revolution Radio. So I guess a mad painter. Why don't you introduce yourself as a producer and artist and poet? Don't know it and all of that. So you can help me carry the show on Spreaker and on YouTube tonight.
I'm just an old hippie talk show host, producer. I'm an artist. Anything creative, I like to get my fingers involved in. And anything to raise the conscious level.
Well,
you've
got a couple of books out there. Well, tell them about your books and your artwork, because your artwork's cool. You know, you do some real out-of-this-world.
Yeah, I like doing art. It's creative, anything creative. I think creativity is what's really spawned our rise and evolution. If you believe in evolution, I don't know, expanded of our consciousness. Without art, we would still be, banging bones against rocks,
Huh. Well, we've always had music to heal ourselves, yeah. I've been talking to Herb Anthony.
Drum.
Go ahead.
First music was the drum,
drums.
Beating something against something else.
Oh, I didn't know that. Before they blew into something, they beat on something.
I don't know that either.
Well, it makes sense, I guess.
That would stand to reason to me, anyways.
You sure we didn't use our voice first, going ooh, 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 ooh?
Well, that isn't really a musical instrument, though,
Vocal cords. Okay, well, we're not starting off at a very high level of consciousness about consciousness and longevity.
To get to where we are, you have to know where we've been,
Well, that's a good point. Our ancestors believed music had the power to harmonize one's soul. So they used that, but they say in traditional medicine. Yeah, we're all about that. Particles and waves.
Right there.
Well, Ira, I guess, folks, with Bioquark, that's what he named his company, his chief executive officer. We had put him on, and Mad Painter who said on my page, and really, until just a few minutes, but he said he had all of a sudden conflict for tonight. So it is Friday night, and he is a younger man. He has a family, so, we can do this. He's been on before a couple of times, but I really wanted to talk to him about certain things in consciousness. And Janet's doing another show. Let's see, you're not having to produce her tonight on Friday? She must do it herself.
No, it's Friday. I got Fridays off. I mainly do Saturdays, Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays at Revolution Radio.
Oh, okay. Well, folks, Mad Painter, he has Sunday, which is, tell them the name of that show on Revolution, at least. And then
Mad
we'll talk
Look
about
at Reality.
A Mad Look at Reality, and he really does, and he has a lot of people show up, and he does a lot of panel discussions. Do you still use the format where you talk about something that you've done for the week or thought of, and then let people talk about it?
For the first hour of the show, I play a video on some subject to try to set a standard for what we talk about, and for the next 3 hours, we change subjects faster than a coon dog on a hunt. So
you have a 4-hour show on Sunday, my goodness.
Right.
So anybody can show up in that show. That's Revolution.radio.
Yeah, it's a call-in show. I don't turn anybody away. They can call in, and we talk about just about any subject. I mean, if you want to talk about the color of the hair that your mohawk on your dog is, we'll do it. Yeah, and I've actually showed up a few times and had a good time on your show and enjoyed the topics. And they jump around more than I do, so we'll just put here for tonight, Monday night, then, that it's going to be a Mad Painter, which is also known as Thomas Becker. And I guess one of the things I'm sort of rusty. I used to be pretty good on my feet. A Mad Painter and Theresa J Morris will cover. I'm going to put this in the description for tonight. Will cover, and Ira will be here Monday night. All right. So I'll put that in this description just now, folks. Monday night,
but we'll talk.
Monday night I have
What?
a show at 10 o'clock on Revolution Radio, which is called Open Canvas, and my guest this week is going to be Jim Williamson, and we're going to talk about Hollow Earth and the Bible.
Interesting. Hollow Earth. And, that's a topic all to itself, but there's so much to talk about in our lives, consciousness, and spirit science, and I like to think we're metaphysicians, and I guess it's whatever we do with our consciousness that makes us harmonize with each other. Everybody has their own instrument, and Ahmad, yours does a lot of things, very talented. And how long have you and I known each other? Since about 2013?
5 or 6 years now. I'm really not sure.
Yep.
I don't measure
neither.
time too well. I'm lucky to make my show each week.
Okay.
I'm not on a time schedule, except for the shows. The rest of the time I work at my own pace. If I want to work, I go work. If I don't want to work, I don't work. If I want to go to sleep, I go to sleep. I just don't have any, set time pattern.
I guess I'm sort of the same way now, actually. So, semi-retired. My kids are keeping me busy, and Janet's the one that keeps me busy doing radio shows with her because she likes me to do them over here. But she's been doing pretty good with you, and for how many years now? So, I know we did start it in 2012 over here, but
her and Sasha do 2 shows a week here at the station, which is pretty awesome.
Are they on Sunday, or when do they do a show?
They're on Sundays and Tuesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard each week.
Okay. Normally I talk to her every day, and Ken R. Johnston does one on Friday nights with us for the Allied Command, and we talk about just getting out in space with people. And consciousness has a lot to do with all of us. There is a critical mass consciousness. We each have our own path to discover, and we allegedly use the word ascension for a higher calling, or making order out of disorder, getting ourselves straight and focused to get from point A to point B. And I guess most world religions say we're going to a higher place. We call it ascension, to heaven, or into another world. And tonight we can talk about just about anything, since Ira's not going to be here. But I don't know, where are we inside our human body? And we're not just in our brain. And Mad, I can talk about anything, and so can you. But I would sort of like to talk about our consciousness, because when I got sick as a kid,
I believe our consciousness dwells in several dimensions at the same time. I don't believe it's just in this particular reality that we're sharing right now.
So you believe in bilocation?
It transcends one dimension, or what we call 3 dimensions. This is a 3-dimensional reality. I think it transcends that.
I do too, but I don't know how to explain it. So this is the the point where we learn to communicate with each other.
It's hard to explain.
Well, convince me.
I mean, it's more a feeling than it is, and a knowing than it is a tangible thing you can put down to science. What we do know is that at death that we lose like 3.5, 4 grams of weight, and that's probably our consciousness, our spirit, leaving this reality.
Well,
that's scientific proof, that there's something other than just this realm.
That's what I've always heard, and then studied in books, and then seen it in films and documentaries. I guess until we die, we really don't know. But at the same time, having out-of-body and near-death experiences like I have, I know that I was outside my body, and it was just like traveling at night, and I do a lot of that at night, out of body. But folks, consciousness, a state of quality or awareness of being aware of an external object or something within oneself. So basically we've learned about the inner I and the inner we, or the inner self, and how we feel it inside. And when I was a little girl, and I came close to dying several times, I'm very much an in and out of body person. I guess it gave me the ability to know how to do that. But the state of being awake and aware of one's surroundings, when we can see, what about the blind people that can't see? And I wonder about that sometimes, because when I was sick and I was a little girl, about third grade, fourth grade, I'd already had hepatitis the year before, and in the second grade, and the next summer I got really sick, and I sunk back in my head. I remember my room where I was and the windows outside, my Aunt Dorothy and Mother standing up over me, and I was to a point where I was delirious, and they had put towels down. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't get up. But I remember feeling trapped in my brain, Ahmad, and seeing all the different parts, just like a brain looks, when someone holds a brain in their hand and they got all those loops. My consciousness sunk down below that, and I didn't realize that till probably 2014, when my husband and I were going to a spokesperson that was helping me after sometime between 2003 when I had my accident to 2014. But he told me that it sounded like I had sunk down inside my brain. But he said, but I've never heard anybody say that. I don't know that that's possible.
It sounds to me like you were looking out from your pineal gland.
Yeah,
how I would pronounce it.
Pineal, yeah. Well, pineal.
And
it depends on who pronounces it.
Yeah, that's your connection to the etheric world, the other dimensions.
Well,
I mean, that's where it's the all-seeing eye.
The pineal gland. That is said to be part of the ventricle of the brain, but it says that's pretty important. That they discovered that part of the brain. Now, we say consciousness is just a state of awareness, but we can also see things on the outside of us and on the inside. So we talk about the two parts of us, the outside and the inside, and we know we can feel, touch, taste, smell, all of that on the body with our senses. But what about feeling who you are? We do that, but how do you explain that, Ahmad? There's you on the inside, and then you observe everything on the outside. But the why and the what and the how of consciousness.
That's us being able to transcend this one particular reality and intermingle with the other realities, the other dimensions. That's what I was saying earlier, that we are multidimensional beings. Our soul, our essence, we're calling it consciousness because that's what science calls it. But with people like me and you, we know it as our spirit, our soul.
Well, if consciousness is everything we experience, is it nature for us to experience things? And what is it when we get like a tune stuck in our head or a throbbing toothache? That's an experience, right? But they're different. Music in our head we hear, but a lot of times I hear things, but you don't want to sound like you're nuts. But sometimes we have an inner knowing or an inner thought. Is that us, or is that from somewhere else, or do you think it's both? Our higher self.
Do you have a running dialogue in your head all the time?
Not really. My thoughts come and go. How about you?
No, I've got a running dialogue in my head constantly of my own voice.
Huh. I've never heard that said. Okay. Wow, this is going to be interesting. An excitable type of consciousness.
I've talked to other people who have the same thing, and when I'm not speaking, my thoughts are running. It's my own voice. It's not like it's somebody else or something. It's my own thought pattern. But I also think on two different levels at the same time. Some of the other people I've talked to do too.
Wow,
Which is,
this is heavy.
A lot of people don't,
No, well, I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to concentrate because when I listen to you, and they say there's a 3 second, roughly, or 3 parsecs of a second. Anyway, by the time we're talking, it's already, we're not thinking it anymore. So I don't really get that. That's why I need to study more of how the mechanism really works. But in other words, when you hear me, it's already happened in my brain. Then I speak it, and then you hear it, right? In 3 parts.
It's no longer the now, it's the past.
Yeah. So, right, in between, I don't have a continual chatter in the back of my head. I have quiet spots. But I could always twirl machetes or twirl batons or play a piano or do tasking and had people come in from Japan when I was running a corporation and had a lot of investors to watch me do multitasking.
You have that. Then you have this ability that I'm talking about, that where you're able to do certain things. You're doing it automatically, but it's there. You just don't. You're not aware of it. I'm literally aware of it at all times. That's the only difference. Yeah,
they say we have various levels of energy or particles. We're particles and waves, basically.
That's that more than one dimension aspect of our souls.
Well, let's see. Now, you can
tune in
medical.
You can tune into this to this other aspect of your soul with practice. Anybody can. It's
that's like a lot of people channeling.
Ambidextrous. It's like being ambidextrous. Left-handed, right-handed. You can do the same thing.
Well, Freud divided consciousness into 3 levels. We're doable. We're what? Dual.
Well, in this reality, we're.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The human part of us is dual. Now, our soul is multidimensional. It could be, you could be living 30 lives at the same time and you don't even know it.
That would be amazing. I've never thought like that. I felt like my reincarnation self or past lives are on a linear timeline in a moment in the past, but they say everything's happening in the level of consciousness that's the now. But, let's talk about that, because Freud said that in the human consciousness, we had the awareness, and then we had pre-consciousness and unconscious. And the unconscious are the things that are outside of conscious awareness, including memories, thoughts, and urges they were not aware of. Sort of like you've seen, what was the ice Titanic? There's a huge under the water type of iceberg. We only see the tip of the iceberg, but when we say beta, alpha, theta, yes. So they use that.
That's the same way our soul is. That's the same way our soul is. We're only, here in this reality, we're only a segment of it. It's only a piece of what our soul actually is.
Well, how many levels do you think there are? Because this anesthesiologist, Stuart Hammeroff, is really good at breaking down the tubules in the higher consciousness versus lower, but he's studied it 45 years. But, he puts people to sleep. With the 3rd wave, it's like Tao. But people say there's 6 levels. Now, I guess it depends on what you read and what you want to do as far as accept the words and the behavior of each person. But basically, we're walking around in beta. It sounds funny because they named them beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma. And, they have gamma waves. X-rays, gamma waves, are the mind EEGs. But I don't know. I guess we're going to have to get conscious on how we discuss the different levels. And are we discussing medically or metaphysically or, how we just create ourselves? How do we tune in? higher levels and lower
medically,
levels.
medically, I think stretches it out too far. It just doesn't. How, it tries to explain consciousness in this reality and not consciousness in a spiritual manner.
Well, that's yeah.
They want to break it down to chemicals and reactions and actions, and I don't think it's that simple. Well, it's more simple than what they actually. I think it's just that we're etheric. You know, that we're multidimensional.
So you think we're more than the physical body and the energy, like they're trying to say, you know, that thoughts are 10 to the 16th power, but this guy Stewart, and we can have Ira talk about more of that. He understands a lot of his work in the biology department of the medical and the physical and anesthesia and putting the brain to sleep. But, you know, with you and me, we can just talk about what we feel in order to be us, firsthand experiencing higher consciousness. But so you feel dimensionally, I guess we're going to have to talk about different things and different metaphysically speaking versus science. But, you know, metaphysics is like a pseudoscience, because they go into the metaphysical when they can't really say it's science. But I don't believe that either, because cosmos is everything, and we're talking about consciousness. But depending on what school or what, you know, like what are you referring to? Everything's subjective. So it's important to know yourself and the I and the we. So I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they, right? I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. That's what we learn as pronouns, I guess one might say, of how we describe ourselves. But in the medical field, they do beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma, sigma, tau waves. And he talks about putting people to sleep, and we have to have, there's at least, I think they have the 6 waves. And that's what you're talking about, right? They break it down and show it on the screen of the different waves, and they can claim you brain dead, right? But so
well, do you
it's
realize
different.
when they actually give you anesthesia, what they're doing is they're taking you to a place that they call emphoria, which means you're one step above death.
Brain dead. Well, we're not vegetables, but they'll pull the plug on you if you get to a certain understanding brain death, I guess.
Right, but that doesn't mean you're really dead.
Life after brain death. Are we still alive? I know that I was out of body, but then apparently they say my OBE was an NDE, near death experience, right? Can you be dead and here? Because I know you can. You can be deeply unconscious. But I'm talking from my first-hand experiences, right? How I was, because I still had memories.
It's beyond science's ability to explain that type of situation. You reach a point
when you're
in
brain
science
dead,
where it says you're dead, you know, but your body's still working. Your consciousness may be off running around in the universe for a little while, you know. But they would consider you dead. They would consider you brain dead.
Well, I wonder how they truly know unless they put saying their waves aren't there. I've never seen them pull the plug on anybody, but I'm sure people listening could testify that, you know, I guess their eyes are open. There's no light going into their brain through their eyes. They don't blink. If you know that you can touch the cornea, and their head's not moving. I guess a lot of people die unconscious, so they probably have the lids down over their eyes. So brain stem death may be different, but brain death and consciousness, I guess we're going to have to go into the medical to figure out all this, because people have to be confirmed dead.
People been considered brain dead in comas for years and then come back.
Well, don't they lose the capacity to breathe on their own? This is deep, but it's getting down to, are we a machine?
Yeah,
well, a machine can breathe and bring oxygen into your lungs, and into your
body
bloodstream,
is
and
actually,
still.
your body is
Yeah.
actually a machine. It's an organic machine.
Well, they say that we're brain dead when the stem function's lost, the brain stem. They, like on a motorcycle accident or something. So your heart can still be beating. Right.
When you lose the ability to, you have certain things in your subconscious that you don't have to think about. You don't have to think of your heart to beat every so many times a minute. You don't have to think of breathing. You automatically breathe. These things are autonomous actions, not conscious actions.
Well, subconsciously we have a central nervous system, right, in our spinal column, and our normal response.
I mean, what do you do? I mean, that would be considered dead.
Yeah. So what about a vegetative state? If you're a vegetable, you've had brain damage, but you can have brain damage and still some form of consciousness. This is so complicated to talk about, but we got to sort of jump around the board here, folks. It is because when my daughter's got leukemia right now, and they're giving her like zero chance to live, and I'm having to live with death daily. She's got 100% cancer in her bones now. Her body's not making platelets, red cells, white cells, and basically they're writing her off now because they don't even want to keep giving her platelets because she's so far gone. But she's walking, talking like anybody you wouldn't even know.
That has nothing to do with her consciousness and her spirit. That has to do with...
No, she's walking, talking, blah, blah, blah. Her body's just starting to shut down. But
it's her body.
The only way they know
is
her physical.
Which is the physical, not the organic part, not the etheric part of her soul or her consciousness.
So basically we could both agree that your physical is not necessarily your consciousness. Your body is not. Your brain stem. Well, but we have a brain stem, but it's not necessarily our consciousness in it. So I guess could we agree that your spirit is part of your soul that goes back to your oversoul or a bigger part of you somewhere else, maybe?
I think it's the same thing myself.
Spirit and soul, the energy.
I hear people say that there's a spirit and then you got a soul. I think, personally, they're pretty much the same thing. I mean, without one, you can't have the other. In this reality.
Well, that needs to be looked at and talked about, too, because people interchange. And you remember Tommy Hawksblood, he could talk for hours on spirit and soul and the difference. But what's the difference? And in Hebrews, it says, "For the word of God is living and powerful and sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing even to the division of soul and spirit and of joints and marrow." So somebody somewhere cared to look at that and write it down and put it in the Bible. Right. Somebody was thinking pretty deep.
You can have... Now, there's a division there to a certain extent because you can have a certain how do I put it?
What's the difference between your soul and your spirit?
You can have passion for certain things, which a lot of people would call spirit. But it's your soul is what's controlling it.
Well, if you believe in the Bible and Adam, of course, folks, we can go back to the deluge and all the ancient religions and all that, but I was raised in America and I was raised Christian, so I pretty much follow that. I don't know if you'd say cultural division or cultural acceptance, but anyway, a lot of us are conditional, situational, and let's just say that, for sake of argument, that I study all world religions and I consider myself a universal life minister. But I also consider myself a metaphysician, and I'm open to all possibilities through the soul, through my senses and feelings, and I'm in contact with other people outside of me. But according to my soul, it's always there. I don't know how to be me without my soul, but through spirit, it says we're in contact with an oversoul or God, our self, according to my understanding, and we're here on Earth in a body, and we need one while we're down here on the planet. But your soul can come and go, and your spirit's filled with, I guess, everything that we experience, it gets recorded somewhere. So I guess, do we say that in our pineal glands, our limbic system, or everything in our nervous system? Because it's very hard to feel without a nervous system. So we gotta decide. I guess, Ahmad, we need to figure out: are we both soul and spirit, or are they the same thing? Being spiritually minded, and you're right. What you're talking about, like people talk about their spirit. How did you sense that? You're sensing, your sixth sense. Get behind me, Satan, so to speak. You can feel something bad, feelings, emotions, thoughts. Are those part of our soul? Spirit, body,
it's
soul?
It's part of our transcending of this reality that is, that, like I said, it's our soul because we're more than one dimension at the same time.
And emotions,
sometimes
feelings,
some people are
thoughts.
Yeah, they're in tune with it, where they can actually pluck out these little pieces of intuition from it. Because that has to do with, once you leave this reality, time doesn't exist.
Time, space, and gravity out there, because gravity is based on something you're located close to. If it's on the waves out there, and what they call the matter, dark matter, antimatter, and all that. But they say the nothingness and the void out there. But is there really? Because there's finding the particles and waves, and now in quantum mechanics, we think to the 10th to the 27th with the tubules, according again to this anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. But they, when you think like the guy that works for Google, what was his name with the singularity?
Elon Musk.
Not Elon. The other guy, Creswell. How do you say his name? Carswell. Well, let me just look up singularity. Yeah. Singularity. His Ray Kurzweil, but he works for Google now. And he's. I think that. It seems like he was on Ed Sullivan when I was a kid or something, but he was really into computers, wasn't he? Anyway, Ray Kurzweil is used for the Singularity Hub, and they say that somewhere they thought that because the computer could do 10 to the 16th, that was where they had the brain was only working at 10 to the 16th power, I guess. 10 times, 16 times 16 times, and you'd come up with equal to, I guess, how many billion neurons are in the brain or something. But this guy, Stuart Hameroff, says, nay. If you've studied the tubules like he has for 45 years and putting people to sleep, is 10 to the 27th. So now that's a big argument in science, is when does a computer become a human? Or think like a human brain. I know you and I have talked about that, but not in depth. I mean, when does you can take all this money and take a brain of a human and stick it into a computer? And some people believe that, and some of them are doing cryogenics and freezing their head because they think their soul and their thought, is in their head.
Yeah, they do believe that they're able to now. Are able to download your consciousness into a machine, and don't.
Do you think that?
I'm not
because we're
sure
talking
about that now.
Yeah, I'm not in, because consciousness, like when you play the television, you have to have the television, which I guess you could say like a body, because I grew up in the 50s, 60s, and television was the big thing. But you'd see the little people in the screen, but you knew that was not little people in the screen, but the electricity that came. But how does it make the people? How does it make I still don't get it. And then the same thing with music. When you take a needle and stick it on folks, I'm old. Okay, I'm 67. You put it on a record, vinyl record, and you'd watch it go around. But outside the speaker would come the music. But where's the music? It's not on the record, or is it?
It's in the magnetic. Yeah, it's in the magnetics. And it's the same thing with television. It has to do with where the photons are put on the tube. Where they.
How do they stay?
Electrify. Do what?
Well, that's sort of like
the
consciousness,
they don't stay
right?
On your screen. Your screen actually has got a flicker rate, and they change. They're constantly changing. on a television.
Well, with singularity and Ray Kurzweil and one-dimensional black hole, that puts a huge mass of space in one dimension, but it's still there. But we don't really break down everything, because we haven't been to one. So we use, philosophically speaking, even science. That a gravitational singularity is hidden with a black hole, or a nothingness, a void that goes in, and we don't know the bottom, or do we? So all this is really speculation, but we talk about it like it's three-dimensional, hard, what do we call it, tangible, like we can see things. So we can't really see our spirit. What's that about? And we can't see the music on the vinyl, and we can't see the little people in the... So you're saying we go back to particles and waves, if everything, even our consciousness,
yeah,
right?
It all boils down to that in the long run, including your television and your record, like you were talking about. It all boils down to what wave is left on the record, what magnetic field is left there, and it transfers that particular wave back into a sound wave that you hear.
I guess that's why we're blessed with ears, so we can hear. But consciously, we're trying to figure out what are we with our spirit and soul, and does it verse it, or is it? We're going in a variety of types of topics here, folks. But going in a circle and find out where are we, and what part of us can they put to sleep. And those are certain waves. They call them the Tau, I believe. So let me see if I can look up this guy's name.
I think when they bring you down to that level of euphoria, what they're actually doing is they're blocking your spirit or your soul from accessing this reality.
You think so? That's interesting how you say that. Quantum consciousness.
That would stop you from feeling pain so they can operate on you.
Yeah, I've had it done many times. It's sort of spooky. You come out of it and you're missing some time, but you don't know how much time.
Yeah, they're actually playing with your soul, in my opinion.
Whoa, seriously? Really? Well, let's see. Stuart Hammeroff.
Think about it. Think about it, because it's your spirit or your consciousness or your soul that's feeling what your organic body is interpreting from the input it's getting, like getting cut.
Well, get this. Stuart Hammeroff, the guy.
If that's blocked, you're not feeling the pain.
You're not feeling the wavelength or the energy that is you, even though you're inside. Like it's like the person driving the car. You're cut off from the body.
Right.
Stuart Hammeroff I'm talking about, he was born July 16th, 1947. Roswell, New Mexico, CIA, GUS, Galaxy Universal Shuttles, the ETs, UFOs, that 1947. He came along. He's an anesthesiologist, and he's a professor at the University of Arizona. And I want to go to his convention he has in Tucson every other year, but he's just crossed my radar this year, folks, in 2019, while I'm trying to find out how to speak about the various levels that I exist in, or believe I exist in, the studies of consciousness. But he has quantum states in neural microtubules. I'm going to spell that for you, microtubules, and that they're responsible for the emergence of our consciousness. So he's a lead organizer of the Science of Consciousness Conference. Okay, and this is a mad painter, Thomas Becker, and myself, Theresa J Morris. I go by T.J. Morris.
Who only has opinions
on
the subject.
We only have opinions, but we have one. So because we own one, I think we're conscious. I'm not sure. We can form our own hypothesis. How's that? How he went into cancer-related research, which interests me because my daughter has leukemia and dying right now. As we speak, we're all dying. But his interest was in the cell division of microtubules, and that led him to study as an anesthesiologist. But he's very well known now, and from Hameroff, he read a book, The Emperor's New Mind, and Roger Penrose, very famous mathematician, published the book on consciousness, The Emperor's New Mind, in '89. So he has teamed up, let's see, Gödel's incompleteness theorems. He argued that the brain could perform functions that no computer system or algorithm could, okay? So from that point, he teamed up with some guy, but I don't know what the guy's name is. I've seen him recently on some YouTubes. But there's this constant field of discussion, I guess one might say, or hypothesis towards science of consciousness. And they've got brain mapping going on, folks. You can watch it on YouTube. But they'll never find all the parts of the brain. There's just too many billions and millions of them, billions, trillions, right? But Hameroff is the lead organizer for Tucson Towards a Science of Consciousness meeting. He began in 1994, and he had roughly 300 people. But since then, it's grown, and they do one in country and out of country, apparently. So the formation of the Association for the Scientific Study of Consciousness, it sponsors every 2 years a study of consciousness and meetings, as well as sponsoring seminars of the consciousness theory. Now, they describe this conference as the Chronicle of Higher Education. As the Stewart Show, which his name is Stewart Hameroff, okay? Anything goes. So it's sort of like us talking today, me and Mad, anything goes, folks, when we talk. And metaphysically, you try to wrap your mind around what are we? We're more than just our physical body. And this guy, Stewart Hameroff, was born in Buffalo, New York. And I guess he's roughly 71 now, 47. What's 50? How old did that put him?
I didn't hear the date. I was born just north of Buffalo.
47. So Roger Penrose influenced him. He works at University of Arizona, but he's a really old guy. So he went to University of Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. But he's known for consciousness studies. That's why I'm using him. And so, folks, if you can, read The Emperor's New Mind by Roger Penrose. And I guess this guy's got a book out, but I don't know what it is. But if it is, I'll probably buy it. Now, Carl Sagan, we can talk about the cosmos and the criticism that he received. He was attacked by a physicist named Max Tegmark, who calculated that quantum states in microtubules would survive for only 10 to the 13th, too brief for any significance for neural processing. But Hameroff and the physicists Scott Hagen and Jack Kaczynski replied to Tegmark, arguing that microtubules could be shielded against the environment of the brain, and that Tegmark had used his own criteria for the reduction of the wave function and did not use Penrose's which assumption behind the whole theory. In 2014, experiment confirmation of shielding quantum coherence in microtubules was found by Anirban, Bendo Patia? That's hard to say. Well, we know we're conscious. I mean, but we also know when we go to sleep, they say that we're in alpha state. They use beta for conscious, alpha for semi-conscious, sleep state. So maybe we better look at how do we walk, talk? The autonomic nervous system. We do a lot of things without having to breathe. Like my daughter right now, so apparently you and me are making our own blood, and she can't anymore. So right. Your bones make your blood. And see, this is just perplexing me because she's walking, talking. You wouldn't think anything's wrong with her other than she's starting to bleed out and has a bruise on her face. But a little red around her eyes, which is what happens. But consciously, something stopped working in her that's not making her physical body make blood. And they say it's because something's broken down.
Subconsciously that isn't working. It's one of them things that is subconscious that you don't have to think about. You don't have to think about making blood, see? That's one of the subconscious actions that your autonomical body does that you don't have to think about with your conscious mind. It's done in your subconscious.
Parts of waves of the brain. Now, I know that I've always been beta they're based it on hertz, the wake consciousness, and alpha is 7.5 to 14 hertz. That's deep relaxation. Theta, the light meditation and sleeping wave. That's okay. So beta, alpha, theta. So that's the sleeping wave is 7 to 7.5 hertz. Then delta is 0.5 to 4 hertz. They call that the deep sleep. I guess that's when you almost get paralyzed and can't move or something. Delta state. And then gamma, they only go beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma here as of 2017. That's not right, but it should be 7. But they chart 5 brain waves. So gamma is about 40 hertz. That's the insight wave. So how does the brain wave contribute to the state of mind?
I think it should be like you said, 7, because it matches the chakras in the body.
Yeah, we could color beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma, sigma, tau, and he says tau. He tracks in the tubules. So, and my daughter used gamma, always said tau before sigma, and I didn't know how she knew. But she came in smarter than me because we both died and came in with knowledge through the universe and through the Akashic field. So she always told me that tau became before sigma. And so beta, alpha, theta, those are just names, folks, but they came from Greek, beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma. And so they're basically put the hertz.
Microtubulars, these microtubulars are actual fundamental process in cells that division
contribute to the waves. Something to do with the waves and the function of the brain. And they're studying how the brain works, but they're trying to map the brain, but there's so many tiny little parts, the neurons, that, 10 billion neurons, something. But, studying what we are as spirit and consciousness, at least they break down the waves. So they study the energy, the electrical activity, the voltage going, they break it down into the parts of the brain, a brain wave, and unlock your human potential. But I don't know. It's so funny talking about the physical reality, right, and the audio downloads, because it's big in music these days.
Well, the thing about it is that we don't store memories in pictures and smells. We store memories in electrical currents and chemical reactions. That's how our brain stores memory.
Where are memories stored?
Different than what. That's another. That's a good question there. I mean, they say different places in the brain.
The long and short.
And it's these different connections. The more you use the connections, the stronger they get too. That's why.
They say there's a long and a short memory. Have you heard that? You have the short memory and the long memory. Mm-hmm. Over long term, you do it something over and over and over, and it sets and smells and taste and sound and all that can bring back memories. Or you hear an old song and you get teary-eyed because your first girlfriend, or like in my case, my first love that I married and had kids with, and he's passed on. But
that one
there's
song that
things,
just takes you back.
Yeah, all that's part of something, but of what? And where is it? Is it in your consciousness and it's stored somewhere? And is that stored in your brain or your soul?
It's somewhere
Where
in your
are
subconsciousness. They kept? Your subconscious sees everything, and I mean everything. And from every person you've ever met in your life, it knows their face and it knows literally the color of their eyes. But your conscious doesn't need all that information. So your conscious, which would be your shorter term memory, doesn't remember these things.
Well,
but it's stored in your brain. It's stored in your brain somewhere.
this is what we're looking at: consciousness, and where is it in longevity? And Ira will help us with the longevity and the microtubules and the telomeres and all that. We'll get into the details, folks, of talking about how we live. And they say when our telomere, the ends like little petals or something break off, that we get Alzheimer's and we get old, and we don't, wherever the thoughts are, we can't find them. But various parts of our mind, all parts of the brain communicate with each other. So they do that through waves, okay? So how different brainwave frequencies unlock your mind's potential. Woo. Well, but where's our soul and our spirit, and they're different, and people seem to think they are. Now, maybe if, let's say if our soul is an album of all the songs we've played, has all the songs or all the lives we've ever played on Earth. Let's say every time we come, we're in a different body or a different vehicle, like a car. We can swap cars. We come down and we take memories back. But they say when we come through the veil down here into a baby, a newborn, that we forget everything we knew. And it's some kind of thing that we've agreed to when we come down to this particular location to learn about how to encode senses into our electrical impulses, which means, are we just a wave and particle electrical impulse and we go back to the whole ocean symphony? They say we're just a drop in the ocean, right? So there's a vast array of nerve cells. They call them the neurons, and they work in little electrical stations. So they send and release chemical electrical waves. So these waves travel around along the axons and dendrites to other neurons. So these are like little highways in our brain, and these nerves are floating around and going in unison and generating thoughts and movements and speaking and networks, and make our organs work. And a lot of them are on what we're talking about, autonomic nervous system, right? I believe that's what it's called, Anyway, I don't know where that came from, but okay. But anyway, so the brain, has all these waves going on. And when we've got them all going on at different hertz, so it's like playing several waves at the same time. But your delta waves are present in the unconscious mind when we're sleeping and dreaming and total deprivation. That's when you do your self-healing. And theta waves are when you're relaxing, you're sort of drowsy, slower rhythmic, unexpected, unpredictable, dreamlike, but vivid images. So I guess I wonder if that's when I don't know, I'd like to run one of those machines where they watch your eyes flutter, You're sort of in between, but they can watch your eyes flutter. Have you ever done one of those sleep tests, Ahmad?
No, I have never done one, no.
I did, and they told me...
I'm either awake or I'm asleep. There's very little in between for me.
You don't have a meditational state or a place where you can just sort of imagine or deeper breathe or anything like that?
No, I lay down and I'm out.
You're out. Wow. Well, you're talking about always having this mind going all the time, this voice constantly. But I guess we got to look at what transforms...
It don't stop when I sleep now.
Well, beta, alpha, theta waves, let's see, delta, alpha waves, 8 to 14 hertz with state of but relaxed mind. So beta, alpha, when you're calm, and beta has the higher frequency, 14 to 30 hertz. That's what I'm talking in right now. You and I are communicating in beta waves. Isn't that funny that they name our conscious beta?
I don't have a problem changing my... outlook on things. I can go from mad to glad in just a split second. I don't have a problem with shifting my thought pattern, if you know what I mean. I guess you can call it brain waves. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, the higher ones, 14 to 30, is what we're talking in. But don't you have a yogic or a tai chi or a sit and meditate or listen to light meditative state music or, alpha waves below just what we're talking? If it just say go sit down and relax and try to find yourself out connected.
before I go to sleep at night, I do a little speak to the source. You know, I mean, some would call it prayer, but I don't call it a prayer. I just call it
sending thoughts to a higher part of you, or state of mind, or God, or the all source of whatever created you and the trees and this world and all worlds, universally speaking. Some people that aren't atheists believe in a source.
Once I start that, I'm out, you know.
Oh, okay. So you go to bed. Well, yeah, I do that every night too. So delta waves are 0.5 to are associated with deep psychosocial. Delta wave waves are in the unconscious when your mind's sleeping and dreaming. So beta, alpha, theta, delta.
See, I don't believe I go to a position of dreaming. I believe I'm living another life when I'm asleep.
So when your thoughts shut down here, now a lot of people go into, they feel that
they open up there.
Some just only feel they're shut down and they go into a stasis. What do they call it? Where you can't move at all, and they say it's a form,
catatonic
level.
State, you know,
they can't move, and they have these dreams. And a lot of people think they're having dreams, and others feel like they can't move. They go into panic or have a like a nightmare or something, or their brain's working out various thoughts or maybe memories, or saw something on television or movies or something, and it creeps back in their brain. So who knows? We need to study. I guess we could do a whole show on just dreams alone. But whatever it is, releasing, but it's still, when you break it down chemically, we're water and electricity, electric stations, neurons traveling around the membrane inside, and they get electrochemical charges. And they say that it's on the external surface, but it releases over and over again. Cyclical electrical potential. So when they put us to sleep, now he talks about, but I don't see it in writing about the tau. But if they're only doing to gamma waves, and I've been told that by a neurologist, because remember when I was younger and I had that truck accident I went through, they said I was extremely brilliant before I hit my head. But I'd already died a few times, so I didn't lose any of those memories of things that happened to me. I never lost any of my memory, but apparently I lost some of my intelligence somewhere along the line. I don't think it leaked out, but where did it go? If we have old memories on a linear genetic timeline, which we use here on the planet, right, metaphysically speaking, we're all in a human form, and we know that we're here only for a certain time because our physical body decays. It's set up under oxygen, actually. That which we need actually kills us and decays us, and we need oxygen. So we got to have food for staying alive, self-improvement. But the bio waves, how different brave waves, and are brain waves, are we conscious thought? And if our conscious thought is our brain waves, where do they come from? Outside of us? What do you think?
Well, I believe that. That's part of the, being a multidimensional being that we are.
Well,
I mean, we're here. This reality is here for a tool, just like time is a tool. It isn't a necessity for our souls. It's a necessity for this reality. But
the brainwaves.
Science can't explain that we can transcend this reality.
Well, using an EEG, electroencephalograph, the machine, I've had those hooked to my brain, and they just try to find the waves and the different levels, and said I'm working completely fine. I have no abnormalities. Well, that's nice, but somebody can still think you're crazy, even if these scientifically can prove you're not. Depends on who you're talking about, right? But self-healing, the unconscious, and deep psychosocial thoughts, a lot of it is situational and programming, and how we
that's morals
respond.
I mean, morals is something that one person thinks certain thing is unmoral, where the other person doesn't.
A lot of it is conditional. And a lot of it has to do with where you grew up. Somebody down in Chicago, south side of Chicago with a poor life may not know what one does maybe in the richest part of New York, maybe Manhattan, different lifestyle. But they may grow up hating each other based on the fact that one has and one has not. External factors of triggering thoughts, And why do some people want to kill other people based on, is it conflict and engagement in what our social conditioning is? I believe a lot of it is people take what they want and don't care what, some people use guns on other people, clubs on other people, get violent. And all that's thoughts too. And what makes people do that? Is it the way they were raised? Was it their parents? Was it their religion?
Some of it's human nature.
Muslim? Some
of it's human nature. I mean, it's in our nature to be prejudiced. I know that sounds really bad, but when we were a tribal people, we were prejudiced against the other tribe because they were taking our resources, what we needed to live with.
So it's survival. Survival of the fittest?
Yes.
Are the one that has the most...
That was the start of prejudice, I think.
Well, they say the hunters and the gatherers. You hear that the ones that grew food. And if you go back to the Bible again in the beginning, which they say isn't the beginning because they made man in our image. But all those books pulled together in the Gutenberg Bible, so to speak, are taking the old Sumerian, Akkadian ideas and then came up to Greek and Hebrew and whatever the other one was. There's three, and pull them all together. And then Constantine, king, he said, okay, we're all going to get together and, bring all these occult, metaphysical group people, these pagan people, all these gods, and we're going to have one God.
Yeah, they actually took 3 Bibles and put them into the one.
Well, they didn't call them Bibles back then either. They had all these different people that recorded.
They were holy writings.
Different scribes, I guess. Who knows why they chose the ones they did? But one major guy I've heard, but who knows? You can study it, folks. That's a whole show too. Is just talking about how the Bible was created by Gutenberg
a lot of our outlook on life today is what's been bred into us over eons.
Through culture, isn't it? And through traditions and social behavior based on you want to be like everybody else in order to survive. But if we go back to the hunters and gatherers, apparently apparently fire, right? We were here, something brought us here, something made us and put us here. And a lot of people believe we came from the heavens, and a lot of the ancient Indians and stuff say we came from the underworld. But some say, well, that people from out in space universally brought us down here genetically. And the Anunnaki story is they brought the Ajiji with them, and the Ajiji were supposed to help them because on their planet they had gold they needed in the atmosphere. And they know that sending up astronauts, and they use gold as a shield, so that sort of plays with today's thought and time is when we go into space we need it. But anyway, they needed it, and the Ajiji got tired of mining and said, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. So they created another species made with some apes or whatever was here, and made man, and they tried several animals, blah, blah, blah. But they came up with what we are, Homo sapiens or Homo sapiens sapiens. So that's some of the story that everybody's sort of gotten used to.
Yeah, I got a little problem with that, is if they were a spacefaring race, it's easier to mine gold from an asteroid than it is to come here and create a whole race of people to mine gold here on the Earth.
Yeah, it's just one of the stories. Whether it's real or not, we don't know. We weren't there, but people really subscribe to that now. So how we deal with our folklore, and I've got Ace Folk Life, and started that in 2003, my husband and mother and people in Kentucky. But we were working like with the Smithsonian, and my it was good in the hills to do folklore and to learn what people thought. And people in the hills and the Appalachians, they had different songs, and we were doing bluegrass and country. And we were trying to get together and help people learn and record things. A lot of people I met couldn't read or write at all, and it was amazing that but they still could play music. They could play guitar, banjo. These people could play music like it was a language, and they didn't know about reading A, B, C, D, or how they did. They just knew songs they learned by ear, called it by ear. So, through the ages, people used to didn't read and write a lot. That's why I think they hung on to the church, the Roman Catholic Church and the Roman Empire, and the people on the top told the people, hey, these people from out in space, we're part of them, and we're the ones chosen to lead you people and tell you what to do because we're connected to God. At least that's what a lot of the folklore, a lot of the stories, the New Militia, Bhagavad Gita, and all those stories. But that's up to each individual to decide what they want to believe.
Being able to communicate doesn't mean, just because you can't communicate with a language or read or write doesn't mean you're not intelligent.
Well, that's what I was saying about these people up in the hills and the people in Kentucky, and they could play banjos and mandolins and violins, fiddles, and that was absolutely amazing to me. And they all had their stories, some of them about Bigfoot, Yeti, coming up on them, and they were real. To them, they were stories. So I would collect stories and write them in the weekly newspaper and, work with people. And I learned that I really did like people. I really did. And I believed, Einstein told us that the biggest thought, that the most important thought anyone would ever have, any of us, is whether we think this world is friendly or hostile. Okay, that's the biggest, most important thought. Is this a friendly or hostile world we live in? So you take everything from that.
That's your whole attitude of how you interact with the world.
I guess so, because I've only learned of that today, so it was fresh in my mind.
Well,
but we're talking about consciousness.
If you're going to be thinking the world's hostile, you're going to be on the defensive.
Yeah, I guess him dealing with World War II. He was dealing during the war, remember? And Hitler, that's how he got over on the boat and came to America. And so we were very fortunate that that did happen to some. So did you want to fight and think the world's hostile and kill everybody, or did you want to think it was friendly? So I guess to him that was the most important thought in his lifetime. And maybe it is because he wrote it. You can look it up. Look up Einstein saying that. That the most important thought you'll ever have is whether the world is friendly or hostile.
Einstein made a lot of profound statements. He made quite a few profound statements in his life. One of the ones is that I find intriguing is that we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Which means that what we are learning, and the only way we're able to learn what we're learning is because of the people who are learning stuff before us.
Well, consciousness and how we communicate is extremely important. I named my company American Communications Online, mainly because I can only speak American and not so well at that. And communicate, that's what I do. And online is my tool and what I use. So I named my company American Communications Online. I actually have a bank account named that and a business license named that. But under that, I use ACO, and I came up with those initials because way before with the stuff in Kentucky, and before that was my first company was ACIR, Assured Confidential Investigative Reports, because I was an investigator and I did research for attorneys and the private investigator and then government, and I enjoyed doing study and research, and it's all about the communicating of what I was finding. But life's a journey, whether we're conscious or unconscious. We call this Ascension Age, which I coined for the awakening and the growth of ascending higher to a higher calling or a higher order or a higher discovery of oneself, or unconscious to the higher conscious. Or you hear people say we're awake, and the awakening and the shift. And when do you begin shifting to a higher consciousness? So is it based just on your survival, food, clothing, shelter, or is it based on your history and your experiences of what you felt? You're right, those people don't have to just read and write to communicate. it was a way to discover or to leave behind for your family, people or the genealogy or historically what happened in the past, and we wouldn't know about the Anunnaki and the Igigi or the Numalish or the Akkadians or the Philistines or Sumerians, but we found things written. So some of us have a reason.
And nowadays we write things for pleasure and shock value and stuff like that. Back then they wrote things that were extremely important and anyone wanted to pass on to the next generation so they didn't forget.
Yeah, it was a long time before they started doing novels, and now we do things for pleasure and stories about what's happening and changing, like you said, the shock value. But there is a story in writing and the history of the first novel and all of that. And back when Einstein, and I know Frankenstein has something to do in there to keep us entertained. Remember the story of the woman that did that novel? But I don't. Is that who it was? But that's an important part now because then, and in movies, but stacking up all the dimensions or the books or the pages in a book and putting it together and making the TV, that's a whole, what they call moving pictures, which literally was moving pictures, right? The photos and all of that to make silent movies before they put sound with movies. We've come a long way for something not knowing. Think about all the things we have discovered, but we still don't know what consciousness is. True story.
We don't understand. There's a lot we don't understand. We have a lot of hypotheses out there and theories, but we rely on these theories and think they're facts, and they're not. They're just theories.
Well, they say the way that we're created and the way the world is, it really that we're a miracle that we exist at all, because it just doesn't make sense. And you think about what intelligent design made us the way we are, and think of our skin. Sometimes, if I think, I start getting full of ourselves, but just feel your skin and the fact that you can wash just about anything off of it. I don't know that anything really sticks for good, or if we've tried that, but I mean, just your skin alone, it's amazing. We're very resistant, You know what I'm talking about? It's like, wow, who made us? And how does your skin grow back? Sometimes it's scarred, but...
Think about how complex the human body is. I mean, there's no way that it evolved in the time period that they said it did. It couldn't have. There's just not enough time for it to happen.
So where did we come from? We go back to religion?
We go way back further than I think the Earth existed myself.
So maybe we're part of something.
Opinion.
Wait, do you think that consciousness created everything? Do you think that we are consciousness?
If you believe in source, that source consciousness created this reality.
Well, then we get into a glossary of terms and words and how we talk. We're back to Albert Einstein, general theory of relativity. Well, go ahead. We got laws of nature.
If you think about it, I mean, it has to be consciousness created reality.
Well, it's a phenomenon, and I know that it's hard to describe, and we still don't even know what consciousness is. And we don't know how to make ourselves live longer. But I don't necessarily agree that they're going to be able to take the brain and stick it in a computer and think that that's going to be the human, because it's like the music. Where's the thought waves? They make them put the physical reality together, but I don't think they can make the music play. In other words, they can have a machine.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can trap the soul. I mean, they can take the human body or the human brain and hook it into a computer, but that doesn't mean it has a soul. That's just
what is the soul?
Piece of that's the transcendent part of our reality, that we're part of more than one dimension.
So
with them giving you a shot and putting giving you the anesthesia, they're blocking that soul from using that organic matter.
Well, this is a spirit of supernatural being, often but not exclusively a non-physical entity such as a ghost. That's from Wikipedia. What is the soul? And is it different from a spirit, religious or not? Most people believe they have some form of a soul, which they loosely use like the human spirit. But still, now we got to have what is the spirit and what is the soul? Is there a difference between that? Now, this has been up for controversy for years and years, and probably, I don't know, in our lifetime, it'd be nice to think in the 2020 to 2035, we discover while we're doing AI the difference between the spirit and the soul, and where's consciousness, and what is consciousness, and how do you find the God factor, the theory of everything? What is the God gene, I guess? Is there inner and outer attachment? Are we one or both? We have an I and we have a we, but we also have a they, because we're all one sense of belonging to a family, friends, colleagues. We admit that we're all connected on some level. Maybe it's just electronically or empathically, a translation of words of what is soul, what is spirit, and how is it placed in the body. We know how babies are made in the human, in the divide the cell, and we watch the zygote and everything starts changing and it grows. But when, even the baby came out of me and I watched, and then me and my baby were both, I was dead and she came out dead. But, after they snorkeled her out, or aspirated her, the stuff out of her mouth, well, I did 4, but the one I'm talking about is the one I died with and watched from overhead. But my spirit was out of my body watching it. And, it took her a while, and I was going breathe, breathe, breathe before I ever left it. Went up traveling through the universe. But I saw my body laying there, but I saw something come into her, after they had turned her upside down and she was blue and had the cord around her neck and stuff. That was her body. But some people believe the soul and the spirit's there. I don't. I've seen too many babies born. Well, my babies, you see, and they have to catch their breath and all that. It's like when life enters the physical body. So that's sort of, is that when the soul enters the body?
Now that I ain't got no clue. But that's what it sounds like you're saying, that when they take their first breath.
Yeah, when you're able to grasp a breath, the breath of life, is that when the soul enters the body?
Yeah, no longer part of the host or the mother.
Yeah, because the cord's already been cut. The cord's been cut, and the babies stand alone separately. But sometimes the baby's not breathing and dead and all that. And you can see it in animals too. And I've birthed cats and dogs, and they're in these little circle bags, and you have to break them, or the cat or the dog has to open them and chew on them to get them out before they breathe.
I believe that animals have spirits, not.
Well, why do they have souls like we do? They're everything nature. Trees and flowers, everything in nature, everything that's alive, they're proving that has some type of the same energy that's in us. Well, I don't know that they call it a spirit or a soul. But two cell like a roach.
But they're not sentient.
Well, what is sentient? Is it just because you have senses?
No.
Because they're saying they do feel. They say plants feel.
Yeah.
But let me look up
they
sentient.
Feel, but they can't make conscious decisions to get up and walk.
All right, so sentient. It says sentient.
Yes. But a plant
perceive or feel things. So the simple adjective sentient is you're able to perceive or feel things. Now sentience ends like sentence, but add an I, SENTINCE. Sentience is the capacity to feel, perceive, experience subjectively. It was 18th century philosophers used the concept to distinguish the ability to feel in modern Western philosophy. Experience sensations, sentience. What else would it be?
I'm not using the right word to explain what I mean.
I think you are feeling things, sentience. They say a sentient being.
Well,
you know,
plants feel things, and so do dogs. But like I said, I don't think they have a soul. You know, the soul is different than being able to feel. Yes, they're conscious. You know, I mean,
are
they
plants
are aware of
sentient?
their surroundings.
Plants have different from humans, but they're sentient non-humans, but they are not alive, but they are not sentient. Plants do not have interests. There's nothing that a plant desires or wants or prefers because there's no mind. They're to engage in their cognitive activities. So I guess if you're a plant, you may want to beg to differ. I don't know. But are plants entering the realm of the sentient psychology today? So, you know, who's to really say unless you know what conscience is? So new studies are showing that plants are more intelligent than previously thought, and that was in 2015. So a mind without a brain. Ew, that would be weird. A mind without a brain. The science of plant intelligence takes root. That was May 2018. Conscious. And are they sentient, as the big claims are there? But then when you actually look at the paper, wow, animal rights. There's all kind of things on are plants sentient. So, folks, that'd be cool. That'd be a cool subject. But are they conscious?
Well,
Debate over whether a plant is conscious.
Yeah, a lot of people would say I'm nuts because I don't think animals have I believe
a spirit.
They have a spirit, but I don't believe they have a soul.
Well, anything that can think or thought at a lesser level of essence, I wonder. Research suggests that plants may have intelligence.
A certain amount of consciousness.
Well, an inner plant arouses the passion of even the mild manner.
Is it
Go
conscious,
ahead.
though? I mean, it would have a certain amount.
A debate.
A plant would have
that
a certain
would be a
amount
debate.
of conscious. Yeah, it would have a certain amount of consciousness, but would you be able to consider it conscious?
Well,
a machine has a certain amount of consciousness too, but we don't consider machines consciousness or has a consciousness like we do.
They say that Charles Darwin observed that flora can't rest, that plants they could communicate with each other, fungi and animals releasing chemicals over their roots, branches, and leaves, so they communicate, and they supplied seeds and information. But, you know, are they have nutrients, you know, and they feed indicates a sign of kinship, so they can do things. And then you have the animal, like bees that go from one to one to pollinate and stuff. But it says that in 2018, that the plants had roots that then moved towards water, sensing its vibrations. They were trying to figure out how plants knew to move towards water. Can you believe that? But they would. Is it through acoustic vibes? How do they know to move? But this is 2018. Plant biotechnologist Devang Mehta said that it is unreservedly no for the question of whether plants are conscious. In a February article for Massive Science, plants are not conscious, whether or not you can sedate them. Huh? He opposes the notion that plants can be conscious. Well, I guess so you can't sedate a plant. So he says so they're not conscious. Well, then maybe, 2035 that'll be different. But for right now, in 2018, they're saying that you can't sedate a plant, so it's not, therefore it's not conscious. I don't know that that's a good argument. But it says the Gray Lady was making a major leap when it suggests that plants respond to anesthetics indicates intelligence, according to Mehta. He explains, for one, definitions of consciousness and intelligence are hotly contested even when talking about humans and animals. Second, plants lack a nervous system, which has long seemed requisite for discussion of animal-like behavior. And third, the way in which many anesthetics function in humans is still a mystery. There's no reason why other chemicals shouldn't induce a response in any organism, let alone plants. So he thinks that it's a confusing quality and that humans is unnecessarily anthropomorphizing, venturing into territory of philosophers. Well, everything winds up being philosophy. Even science starts out, you got to think about it philosophically and structure it, in order to perform it. And that goes to consciously. Have you notice you have to think something usually before you can do it? There's a chemical process. in consciousness, right, that happens to make you self-aware, and then you're meta-aware of your surrounding universe or everything outside of you. So I think most people will agree, I'm just saying generally speaking, folks, that we are conscious that there's us, an inside I, and I'm talking to somebody on the phone. I've never met Ahmad, but I'm assuming, making an ass out of you and me, right, Ahmad? Assume, isn't it funny they spell that A-S-S-U-M-E? Ass you me? Assuming that you are human.
That little box on your desk.
That's right. So, the world's divided. So, are conscious and spirit the same thing, or is there a soul that comes and goes? And I feel like when I was out of body and I wasn't in my body, that I was something outside my body. So that therefore I've always been able to do bilocation out of body. But I have a part of me that lives way up somewhere, and it feels like billions of years old. And it's like a point of origin, a speck of me. And yet when I went back and had past life regressions in Hawaii, and, by some registered nurses, I had qualified people and a psychologist there, Dr. Laura Sturgis on my birthday, but I went back to Egypt and I found a black bird over me. You've heard the story, Ahmad, and Thoth. I came out thinking I was Thoth, or a piece of Thoth, or they say Hermes Trismegistus, our thoughts and things and people, but that fractally that pieces go off to be stored at various places. I guess it's like blowing ashes in the wind, different people at different time. But if we're the same person now, why don't I have all the knowledge that he had, right? But some part of me believes in a memory. But where is the memory stored? Because I was deep in, I wasn't in beta, I wasn't conscious, I was in the alpha state or meditative state when you go under. But when I was under, I had like a television playing in my head in the pyramid. And it's still with me. It became a long-term memory. And these are things I've never had anybody intelligent, at the levels that study the physics or the quantum parts of the brain. I guess this person would be one. But where did all that happen? It's like you have dreams, because they tend to think that we categorize and put in boxes. Oh, this is your brain, and this is your brain on steroids, or this is your brain on ketamine, or this. We can prove that, this responds to this, and if you do ayahuasca, you're in this other level of consciousness. So what level we compare, and based on biology and the expressions we use, but also the medications we use. But can your soul and spirit be separate? And I like to think that every time I come down to this planet, my spirit, or that part of my soul, that fractal or that division, is only a small spark or electrical charge from like a lightning source. You can see the lightning, but there's lightning
there. Goes
there.
Back to what I was saying about us being multidimensional. What we use here in this reality is only a small piece of what we actually are.
Well, they say what we see, hear, and feel enters our soul. I don't know if that makes any sense, but what's outside of us? So the impulses we feel, a quick urge to go to the bathroom, these are maybe autonomic nervous system again, I don't know. But some things we're on automatic pilot, but what about the things that aren't? And that stimuli from the outside, even a plant with energy and oxygen and light, and goes towards the water, a flower will turn towards the sun for heat and energy, So certain things we just do. Some things we have laws of nature, and we have laws of humankind. We have suggestible laws, like, well, if you burn your finger, you're going to get hurt. If you put your finger in the fire over there, or on the stove, and I've got a burn on me right now, come to think of it. And I burnt myself and forgot about it, and the next day my finger was hurting. I'm like, what? And there was no mark or anything. But finally the next day, it turned brown. Where I had skinned it, but you couldn't see it today. I was like, why is my finger burning like that? But I didn't even remember burning it when I was cooking, right? But it burnt. So some things we can feel, but we can't see. And it still didn't register that I'd burned my finger the day before. All I know is something was burning and I couldn't see it on my finger. But it translated finally when I could see it. Oh, yeah, you burnt your finger that night. You touched that side of some pan, and you just forgot about it, But anyway, spirit and soul. I want to think that soul and spirit has something to do with self-awareness of life inside us and outside us, exoteric and esoteric, but sentience. Janet Lesson's calling me. Hold on. Hey, Janet, I'm on the live with a mad painter. Yeah, you want to call in if you forget? I'm doing it right now. You're live on the air. Mad's all right. Well, call in 347. Okay, bye. Okay. All right. So Janet can come play. I guess she can come talk about this because there'll be another perspective, folks. The physics of our universe while we're talking about consciousness and spirit and soul and the basic building blocks of why are we here.
We have a duality perspective or aspect in this reality. The spirit and the soul. The spirit might be the duality aspect of our soul here.
I just use the spirit to come and go like a song and on a record player, and then all the spirits that come down here come back to my soul, return to my soul. It's just the way I think about it, and make one big record, one lifelong or eternally, infinity, eternal spirit, or I don't know, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe every time you come down you get a soul and go back up to one spirit. But Janet's here now too, but go ahead.
I also believe our spirit has to do with emotions.
Emotions, feelings, and thoughts. They usually go together.
Yeah, because
emotions,
you can be
feelings,
very
and thoughts.
At something, and somebody that would be considered your spirit. Your spirit is being passionate at certain things.
Let me update people. Let me update Janet. Janet, Ira at the last minute had a conflict. I don't know if it was family or what. He didn't tell me, but he wants to do a show Monday night. So I said, sure. So Mad happened to be here, and I had some people in my Facebook that wanted to listen to a consciousness show tonight. So I had to come on and do the show. I was going to cancel it, and then I tried to write over it and couldn't. So Mad and I have been talking about it, but we've been going in every which way possible. So no method to the madness here if you want to jump in. But right now we're discussing consciousness and the soul and the spirit. And we've gone all over the levels of consciousness, theta and waves and chemical. And, I told him about the guy I told you about, Stuart Hammeroff and Tucson and the science of consciousness and all that, and anesthesiology. So just so you know, it's going to be a whole plethora. It's a symphony of thoughts, but it's words, and we are part of our social way of thinking. So, but Mad, say what you said because people are following that train of thought. Say it one more time so she can jump in here. What you were just talking about.
I got my 2 cents, but go ahead.
Mhm.
I was saying that I don't think that animals. I don't believe animals have soul. I think they have spirit. Which a lot of people think, spirit and soul is 2 different things. I think they're aspects of, that spirit is an aspect of the soul that that is usually in most humans is controlled by emotions. That's pretty much sums it up right there, I think.
Mhm.
Well, what's your opinion?
Well,
They're 2 different.
I was looking at reading the Michael Newton Institute, Life Between Lives. They have a number of different. Sorry about that. I don't know if you heard it. They have about 4 or 5 books about people that they've regressed, and they take them through hypnosis to their lives between lives, and they've done 40,000 plus cases over the last 40 plus years. And what they found that's pretty consistent is that, when you die, you have commonalities, like you're met by your guide, you go to your council, and you end up in your group. And what they discovered is that there is a main, let's call it the soul. And the soul can send fractals down into many lifetimes. So that might be what you're calling spirit. It's like a fractal. But a part of the soul always remains on the other side. and that's like the recorder, and and all the little spirits or fractals come back and reunify with the main, what's called a soul, that remains on the other side and has the record of all the incarnations and wherever the soul can go. The soul can go, send a fractal to other planets. They tend to reincarnate within a certain sphere, but not all fractals or spirits originate from this sphere, from the Earth plane. They might originate from another planet. So, but people visit. They send fractals of their souls down, and they have little vacation lives here on the planet, or they're exploring what it's like to be human. So it's very diverse. But I invite you to read, and there's some YouTubes from the Dr. Michael Newton Institute on Life Between Lives, and very, it's kind of like that witness, testimonial type proof evidence. And there's so many cases, it's overwhelming. And it doesn't matter what your belief system. You could be Catholic or Buddhist or Muslim, but they all are reporting the same thing, basically the same thing, where they go when they die. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, there's different states of being and encoding, that's for sure. And they say that most of the thinking and the feeling and coding, we can't keep it all in a brain. There's just, there's billions of neurons, and they have working on brain mapping. So folks look up what part of your brain's firing what, the neurons and all that, and the dendrites and the axons and all that. But we come in with a blank blackboard, so some people think. Others come and find and become awake and find their past lives and how they all, and that's what happened to me. I intermixed them together, and I'm still doing that. So incoming sensory information, once you get here, it may open up to a broadcast globally to the outer universes, because I believe in multi-universes, and we're talking about cognitive systems, whether or not we'll be processing in the AI too in the future, Janet. We're talking about, could you put your brain inside the computer at the 10 to the 27th versus 10 to the 16th with Ray Kurzweil, stuff like that in the singularity. But a network of neurons, and there's so many, they can't even map them. It's going to take them like forever, the people, and they're brilliant scientists and stuff. But every time they get in and start color coding different parts of the brain, they find other parts of the brain, the little neurons, and they're also, it's like a big universe inside a universe inside a universe, the little pockets everywhere, of where are they storing all this information. And then even if they find out how it all works like a computer, they say that consciousness cannot be computed. It can be built and structured into a system. So what is the soul and what is the spirit? So we have challenges ahead to map the brain and find out what the soul is and what the spirit is. And people are saying they're not the same thing. And some say cerebellum, some say in the parietal. In other words, we're located in different parts of the brain. But Janet, I had told, on this show about me going down when a child and was so sick that I sunk back down in my brain, and I was swimming around, and I felt like I was in prison. And I remember coming out and being conscious and seeing my aunt and my mom up over me, but I was so sick I was not able to go to the bathroom, laying on, towels and all that. But I had been really sick the year before with hepatitis and nearly died in the hospital, and did die and had the out of body. So, I went back into my brain, but I sunk down and could feel myself. But, some of the doctors I talked to said that's not possible. You can be inside the surface, or you're on the outside of the brain. You're on the surface. You're not in the cerebral cortex, but you're not on the inside. But I was swimming around, and to me it looked like a brain. Once I got mature in my 50s and started trying to put it all together, my life story, I was like, no, I know I was inside my brain. So your consciousness can go out of body. It can also sink down into your physical body. You don't want to be that deep where consciously you can't get out. Believe me, you feel trapped. You feel like you're in prison. It's terrible. So, these are reflective behaviors that we want to start helping people. You can self-diagnose. You can be diagnosed by another person with more education, possibly a PhD or a medical doctor. But you can also self-diagnose based on what you've experienced. It comes down to being conscious of what are we controlling in our databases. And will we ever find out what we really are, conscious, soul, spirit? But Janet, we'll have to look at that Newton thing and all the people. So when we start comparing stories, we unfold a bigger, I don't know if you'd say consciousness, but we, at least another way to communicate, to feel like we can increase our observation, right? Why do we do these shows, for instance? Are we helping the collective consciousness?
Actually, Janet was confirming what I said, that, that we're just, we're multidimensional, and we only using a piece of our soul here. In this particular dimension, that, in this reality that we're experiencing together right now.
So, are we really here, or is this an illusion? That's a big thing now too.
No, we're not.
Quantum
really
dynamics.
We only think we're here. What is here?
Well, remember the movie Avatar, Matrix, and the Avatar.
That goes back to saying that consciousness creates reality. See?
Right. We're making this all up. Just remember that. If you don't like it, change lanes, switch channels. We're making it all up.
Well,
so
everything goes back to your own philosophy. But we still have here, you can go out and get hit by choices. Most of us, if we're not brain impaired, I guess one might say, if we have all our faculties, we're all living in a universe, but some have laws about what's matter and what's not matter. And I used it a while ago about my finger. I burn it, but I forgot to burn it. And then the next day, my nerves were really exposed to the air and were burning. And the nerve endings were, but I couldn't see anything on my finger between my, the digits on your finger next to my thumb, my first pointer, I guess. But in between my hand and the first digit on that finger, the pointer finger, and it's burned length long. Now I can see it. So it took 2 days to turn brown for the skin on the top, but the next day it was raw. But I couldn't put it together because I'd forgotten I burnt myself. But it was the feeling, but I couldn't see it. And I was like, what's wrong with my finger? Because I couldn't see a thing. It was just some kind of light burn. But it took 2 days. Now I've got a brown piece, I don't know what you call it, where the bare part of my skin that got burnt, now I can see it. But it wasn't until I saw that, Janet, 2 days later, that I went, oh, yeah. My memory then recalled, pulling a cookie sheet out of the oven, and when I picked it up out of the oven, somehow I grazed the top of the oven that was, on at 400. But I burned it ever so slightly. But that's feeling emotions and nerves, and they say you have to have a cerebral cortex, but you also have to have what was the stem? Your brain stem, right? I guess that's the reptilian in us. We got to have that brain stem, or is that the first brain is the reptilian brain? But we're not our brain.
The stem is the reptilian. Yeah, we have to look.
Is
at
it
the configuration of the brain? What is a brain? Yeah, I mean, it's a physical thing, but where are we in our body? Where's the soul?
Where are you when you say that? Should we have a workshop on that? Where are you? We have an inner and an outer reality.
I don't have that answer. I don't have that answer. I mean, there's what scientists say, but what do they know, right? It's all speculative. Yeah, these are deep subjects. I wasn't quite prepared. I'm looking up the brain. That's what I was doing, the brain. Let me look at some images on the brain. You're looking at the brain stem and the parts of the brain, right? Okay.
Where are we? Well, we can at least break down those parts of the brain.
Where does the soul reside in the body?
All right. Well, I feel it in my nervous system.
I know.
And people discuss the heart and the brain. The heart has a brain.
You did. I watched all the doctor shows. Yeah, I've been watching them. They were fun. And so they have a part where they go, they're brain dead, and we're keeping them alive by, machines. And
we discussed that.
For them. Right.
Yeah, what is brain dead? Breathing, heartbeat, blood pressure, swallowing, all that.
Yeah. So somebody can be
brain
dead. Can you never come
vegetative
back if
state.
You're brain dead? So, we need to think these thoughts, because there will come a time, and this is what we explore in our secret space program and in our literature in the past, that the dead were revived, right? And
they could revive them up to 3 days or whatever. And then
well, that's when they drop the body.
They could.
What about
could
this
revive
frozen?
Much longer.
Hypothermia. They were brain dead, but they had severe hypothermia below 28 degrees centigrade, right? When they were declared, but they came back.
Could revive. Yeah, so we had people who've been brain dead. They had a couple episodes where somebody was frozen, and they brought them back, and they warmed them up slowly, and then at a certain point they shock. They like to shock the heart, and then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They call the time of death. They go over to the loved ones, and they say, "We're so sorry for your loss." And then the loved ones have an emotional reaction. And then they say, "We did everything we could. We are so sorry for your loss." And they're trained to do that. They're trained to be able to announce to the loved ones that their person has passed and to not overly react to the reaction that the loved ones have to the passing of their person. So, yeah. So where does the soul? What is I'm not an expert on that. I can only speculate. But
well, at least part of our consciousness is supposed to be in our brain, and our mind tell our nervous system. But we have the autonomic nervous system, and we were discussing that too, because the nerves and like me feeling my finger, but my soul feels it. But at least something does because I'm burning. I mean, if you feel pain. We're here with thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which we were just getting to with the mad painter here. Thomas Becker, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, how all that is important. And we're, on some levels, we can be using, and I can be in uniform and take an oath of office to serve my country against foreign enemies, or domestic enemies, both foreign and domestic. If they're my enemy, then I have to defend my country. But then do I become Spock-like and start taking orders without my emotions? Am I programmed? Am I trained to be a super soldier? So I don't respond to people, please don't kill me, I'm just a human, And like, well, why are you here? Are you a terrorist? That kind of, those thoughts. So we're conditioned with thoughts, feelings, and emotions, or to block certain thoughts of moral. And we didn't get very far in morals, did we, Mad? Your morals, your ethics, your culture. We didn't go down that rabbit hole.
Morals. I have different morals, I think, and values than a lot of people, but I come from an extraterrestrial perspective, and I've always had that strange land phenomenon, and I'm looking at this world and humanity and how cruel people are to each other, and it just I'm like Spock. It never made sense. It's illogical. It's just illogical how we treat each other. So. But what is one person?
Most of them don't think dualistically. This is a dual. This is set up duality.
Dualistic.
With sun and moon, light and dark. But we have nature.
Self and not self. We have, the enemy. You said it earlier. How do you
survival?
Someone's the enemy? The enemy of the
by survival. You want to live.
Okay,
and we went there too.
You know that?
You want to survive.
Someone is, but how do you know they're really an enemy, or it's just your perception of them as an enemy? How do you know?
Well, there's also the laws of nature. You don't know you're going to die in an earthquake. You don't know you're going to get killed in a tornado like just happened over in Alabama. I think Trump came through yesterday. But the thing is, we're subject to laws of the universe. There's universal laws of nature. And then we have the survival instinct, and that is supposed to be a natural ingrained in our nature to survive. So we have to do a whole show with consciousness and longevity. Yeah, and when I hate that when that happens. Yeah, a panic attack.
Fight or flight. Right, can I say my sentence? Okay. The reptilian brain is where we have fight or flight. It's our one-trial learning. So if you go and you put your hand on a hot stove, you're not likely to do that again, right? So you get that. That's your survival part. But, I'm not an expert on the brain. Here's the function. So what's our purpose of talking about the brain? Because I'm not a doctor.
Well, if consciousness means... being with knowledge, can a plant live? We talked about that, but we're trying to look for the soul and what's the difference between the soul and the spirit. It's just because it's sentient.
We were dead. Are you talking about sentient?
It can't be sedated. It can feel, and it knows certain things, but it can't be sedated. So there's a controversy over whether nature sets up certain rules.
What do you mean it can't be sedated? What do you mean by it can't be sedated?
Well, this is one of the arguments: is that a plant is alive. It has feelings, emotions. It knows how to grow towards water, turn towards light. It's like certain people will argue that, or certain organisms, bacteria, amoeba, one cell or whatever, can live and can spawn and have things, but other things maybe too. Anyway, can or can't. Are they conscious? Do they have a soul? Do they have a spirit? And if they can think, is consciousness just meaning that you're self-aware or meta-aware? And they're starting to prove that everything in nature of some type of consciousness exists. But this one guy was saying, what was his name? Devang Mehta, he's a plant biotechnologist, said that his says no, plants are not conscious, because he did a massive science article in February. He said plants are not conscious, whether or not you can sedate them. He vehemently opposes that plants can be conscious. He vehemently opposes the notion that plants can be conscious or intelligent.
I read earlier today that do trees have feelings? Do plants have feelings? And here's on the Telegraph News. Yeah, one expert says they do. I didn't get to read it, but I saw one this morning. It was interesting you're talking about that.
That is interesting.
But wasn't it Tesla that said that consciousness can, any collection of molecules like a plant could become conscious. They have the potential for consciousness. But are they?
Well, if you believe in a God, everything is God and everything is conscious.
Everything is God.
Everything, all particles and waves.
We were talking about AI yesterday, and there's nothing artificial because everything's of God. So everything, every little thing, everywhere. So that nothing's artificial. So that's a spurious dichotomy that this is artificial, this is real.
They know plants communicate with each other.
We were talking yesterday about AI, but anyway, there's a bunch of articles.
Yeah, there is a difference between being divinely creative and man-made, though.
But aren't we divine? I mean, everything's divine. So if we're creating divinity, then we're just creating more divinity. I mean, if we're divine, then we can't.
We're not a divine. But we're not a totally divine creature. We're not God ourselves.
So what do you mean by divine? What do you mean by divine?
We may be made from something divine or a piece of something divine, the overall ocean, but we're really just a drop in the ocean. That's the one that people use. We're water. We're mostly water, 87, so I forgot the percentage. But we go back to the ocean. But now the ocean isn't God, or is it? Depends on the analogy.
God. Everything is of God. God is omnipotent, omniscient. It's perfect, and everything's perfect. It's our perception that it's less than perfect. Even the polarity, the good and evil is all of God, of source. It all originated from one, being or whatever, one
I agree with
source.
that.
I call it source. So that
it's above dualism for teaching.
Yeah, it's above dualism.
It's above positive, negative, red, black, white.
Right.
Yeah, it's above all of that.
We're the observer participant, and we are the ones that have the perception. And so if we step above our perceptions, above the matrix, above the duality, everything's perfect. So that was that. Remember those two books, one and let's see, it was Richard Bach, right? Richard Bach. He had this thing where he ended up getting killed. It was one, and the other one, it was before the Celestine Prophecy. It was the original New Age metaphysical book in the 80s that everybody's reading. I'll look it up, Richard Bach. But
they say nature versus nurture is false.
Wait, let me finish.
They say nature versus nurture.
The bad thing.
Let me finish this thread.
The bad thing about that is
let me
the
finish
bad
this.
thing about that
Okay.
is that you're saying that it's then a atom bomb going off in Hiroshima was a divine action.
Everything.
At
So
the highest level,
nature versus
everything
nurture.
is divine. Everything at the highest level. Illusions, the adventures of Richard Bach. Illusions.
All thing comes from one.
Right, everything comes from one. So on that level, but I mean, do we like it? Not. We are the ones here having judgments. We have our prejudices. We have our biases. We have our boxes of morality, and we're the ones who put it in there. And that's perfect too. I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing at a planet where people are at odds with each other because of our perceptions. But most people think they're doing good things, but what might be good for
we're out of
person
time.
might be deadly for the other. Oh, we're out of time. Okay.
Yeah, we're out of time already. Well, it was pretty good considering we didn't know what we were going to do since Ira didn't show up. But I guess now he said Monday, but I don't usually do Mondays, but Ahmad does. So 10 o'clock Monday night, Ahmad. But if you want to get Ira,
show with the other person, Ahmad.
Thursday and Friday.
We
do Thursday.
The show. Ahmad, aren't you doing the show with the lady we had on yesterday? Debbie, on Monday?
I haven't talked to her about doing a show.
Oh, well, she thinks you're on with her because I got an email. And I thought TJ sent it to me. Debbie Solaris.
Wants to be on your show Monday night.
Able to do a show
Monday.
Monday.
I got a guest for Monday night.
It's Monday week. Tell her Monday week.
Okay,
yeah, I've had Jim
Wilson. Out of the middle. Yeah, why don't I just send you her information?
Yeah, I can get a hold of her and talk to her, but I've got Jim Williamson coming on Monday night to talk about the Hollow Earth and Bible and aliens.
What's his name?
Okay.
What's
Jim Williamson.
What's the person's name? Ken Williamson. Jim Williams.
Yeah, he's a preacher, and he's been doing this for years. He's got a website about Hollow Earth. Yeah.
So he has the Christian
pretty good. I've had him on
perspective.
before. He's an awesome guest.
Ah, cool. Okay.
Is he pro aliens?
He does his own radio show on Monday nights, but he's going to postpone his show to come on mine.
Huh.
Nice.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay,
yeah.
Will somebody tell, did you talk to Debbie? Because I didn't talk to her about coming on a Mad show. Did you talk to her?
I didn't talk to her.
I didn't, but I'll talk to her.
You sent me an email, TJ, that she's coming on the show on Monday. I didn't talk to her about that. Where did she get that?
I didn't send you a Monday show.
You. Yeah, it came from you.
I didn't talk to Debbie.
Yes, you did.
Did I have
Somebody
her on?
did.
Do I have
No,
her on
I didn't.
Skype, or did I call her on a phone?
I don't know. Debbie Solaris that we were talking to.
I haven't talked to her, Janet. Except on the radio show. I told her to come back tonight if she wanted to. That was tonight. Remember, I invited her tonight.
I'll find it. Okay. Anyway, okay.
Well, I was just doing Thursday and Friday.
You sent this. Matt Painter would like to have you on his radio show, late Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern, on Revolution Radio. And he said, here.
But not this month. Oh, that was last night when I was talking with Ahmad was it last night, Ahmad, when we were on afterwards on the Skype, right? And he mentioned he'd like to have her, so I said, well, I'll tell her. But it doesn't say this Monday, but I know now. But I said it while he and I were talking on Skype. That was Skyping.
Just send me her information, and I'll get a hold of her.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So that was what Ahmad and I were on Skype. So that's what it was. And he does Monday at 10 because I asked him, well, what time is it? And I'll ask her. He just said he'd like to have her. But also he wanted to have Ken Johnston. And I hadn't told Ken.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I did, Ken. When Ahmad, you and I were talking, remember, Ken was on Facebook. So I told Ken, but you're right, but it wasn't emails or talking to him. It was just at that particular time. Yeah, it was, but yeah, okay. So now we know how that goes. Because yeah, Janet, usually you book everybody, but now we're all doing our own because we're doing different nights. It's real confusing. All right, so if we can pass them around, they can do on different shows with different people, and even though you have the same person, it sounds different, and people ask different questions.
Yeah, I try not to get Janet's guests. I don't want her to think I'm there policing, so I get her guests, you know.
I think that if we just space them out, it's fine. You know, just do it a couple weeks later or a month later or something. I think it's fine.
Yeah, rotate them.
Well, I didn't want you thinking I was trying, being there just to steal your guests. That ain't the reason I'm doing it. I think y'all do a good show, and I like the fact that you do it. And I know you're in Hawaii, and sometimes you have connection problems, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, both of you guys, Herb Anthony. Look up Herb Anthony. He's a musician. He calls himself he's a paranormalist, Pleiadian type of musician. But Janet, you said last night on the show that you were making a list of musicians, and he should be listening tonight. I don't know if he still is, but Herb wants to come on and talk about his paranormal experiences, and then he may play some of his music live on the show somehow.
Well,
I don't know how we'll do that.
They need to send me their info or have them contact me because
it's on Facebook. It's not on Skype. I gave him your name and phone number to book on my show.
I don't want to really call. I'd rather have emails to Aquarian Radio. I can handle that.
I know. I tell them to email me, but they don't do it. Well, they don't like the email. They want to get in touch with me on Facebook. What?
Janet, do you know Merle Frankenhouse?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We had him on. He's good. Mm-hmm. You having him on?
Yeah, he's good. I like him.
Yeah, he just came on the show last week. Merle Frankenhouse. Oh, Herb Anthony. He's in Rhode Island. Herb, H-E-R-B, like Herb Alpert, but he's Herb Anthony, A-N-T-H-O-N-Y. Yeah, paranormal experiences. He wants to talk paranormal experiences, but he's a musician. So he likes to play his far out music. So he put him with Merle Frankhauser and that Huckabee that was on some of my CDs. We need a whole list of ET music people separate. But remember, we hadn't had Huckabee on yet either, Scott Huckabee.
One of Merle's tunes went to space on a Russian spacecraft. A recording of it. One of Merle's songs, Russia chose it to put it on an album, and they sent it up into space.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
He debuted it on mine and Mark's show a few years back. It was his debut.
Whoa, we didn't even mention that when he was on our show. That's cool. Well, Matt and Janet, Ira agreed today to be with our ACO Association, the three of us, and said we can give him a title. I don't know if we want to do research and development or biological or product development or contact or, but y'all think about it, and we'll give him a title. But I'll let him know we're not doing Monday, but we'll do him. Janet, just get back with me and Ahmad. And Ahmad, I've got some people that come on my show too. But Herb Anthony, remember him, and he's on Facebook. Ahmad, find him on Facebook. You know, a lot of people only do Facebook. They don't want to do emails. So it's amazing. Yeah, Janet, I don't know.
Yeah,
you do Skype.
Facebook. No, I do.
Well, Ahmad only does Skype, right?
I say if you really want to come on my
show.
Too. Yeah, send out your bio. I put them on my calendar. That makes an email. I get them organized. I corral them down. Facebook is too crazy. You can't find shit on Facebook. It disappears.
Yeah, it's
my husband
chaotic.
will come in and say, it's chaotic. He'll say, come and look at something on my Facebook, and there's been 9 million things, and I can't find the shit he put on Facebook, 2 or 3 hours earlier. It's just crazy.
It all depends on how many people are filling your timeline.
Well, I guess got a lot of people on his timeline. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think we've been, I've been recording all this time, even though it's been off. The time's off, but it'll still be on the recording. So I guess people in the end of this one will learn a lot of our business. Talking about booking people. All right, well, we'll have to hang up. All right, so, well, let's get back together. And Mad, so remember Solaris for Monday week maybe, and then Ken Johnston 2 weeks later, because remember his back's torn up right now.
I need her information.
How do you want to do it?
Telephone.
We need
Oh,
information.
okay.
We need
I don't have
website or
Debbie Solaris. You send
I
him
just sent
Debbie's,
that-
and I'll send him
I just
Ken's.
sent
I'm
that
Mad.
to you, Matt. I just sent
I'm
you
Mad. Do you?
Debbie Solaris.
What's your email? Is that the one? Have you been getting my emails, Mad? Do you get them from me? The Mad Painter email?
I don't know if I've gotten any from you. It's the
great.
Mad
I think
Painter 13 at yahoo.com.
Yeah. Okay, Mad13, not Gmail. Mad Painter13 at Yahoo.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Janet,
Yeah,
if you can send him one.
Email.
All right. Well, Ken Johnston on Facebook. It's the one, Mars1 Astronaut at Gmail. I think I told you that. But Mars1 Astronaut, one spelled out. All right. Well, I'll try to send you a Yahoo. A Mad Painter 13 at Yahoo. And anyway, Ken Johnston and Solaris, and then you make your calendar.
It's the Mad Painter.
Oh, no, I'm not sending you the Mad Painter 13. No wonder. Okay. The Mad Painter, or as you said. All right. The Mad Painter. Janet, you've got it, but let's make sure he gets Ken Johnston's phone number. You and I both have it. Okay. Ken normally does Fridays. He just was sick last night with his back. All right. Well, love you guys. Thank you. And I don't even know who's coming on Thursday. He's what?
He's just one of them guys that I haven't talked to in the UFO field that I'd like to, because he was an astronaut, you know.
Ken Johnston, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you in an email. All right. Mad Painter 13 at Yahoo. Okay. Well, thank you guys for helping me out. Thanks, Janet, for coming on the last few minutes. And, Friday nights, and we covered. All right. Thanks. And I don't know who's coming on Thursday, so call me. All right. Thank you, Matt. Please come back anytime you can, and we'll get you more people.
Y'all have a good evening.
All right.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Good night. Here we go. Is anything happening?